Welcome to this explainer. We're going to do something a little different right off the bat and place ourselves directly in the path of one of history's absolute most feared forces. Just forget the maps and the dry textbooks for a second. I want you to put yourself right in the shoes of an ordinary person living your life in a walled city somewhere along the Silk Road. The air around you is thick with anxiety. Why? Because there's this unstoppable storm brewing out in the east, and it's heading your way.
So, what do you do when the horizon itself turns black and practically seems to bleed? For months, you haven't actually seen a single enemy soldier, but that sheer terror, it's already invaded your home. You've been hearing the whispers, the stories of a warlord named Temujin, who we now know as Genghis Khan. He's unified the warring tribes of the steppe. The tension is just suffocating. You're suddenly trapped in this intense survival situation, waiting for a force that literally moves faster than any army in human history.
I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me. Those are the words Genghis Khan reportedly spoke at the Grand Mosque after the terrifying siege of Bukhara. The historian Giovanni recorded that chilling quote, and honestly, it tells you exactly what was coming. It so perfectly captures how the Mongols viewed their own devastating conquests. They didn't see it as just expanding an empire. To them, this was an apocalyptic reckoning.
When the Mongols targeted a kingdom, they gave them only two incredibly stark options. Option 1, surrender immediately, pay tribute, accept Mongol overseers, and you get to retain a little bit of autonomy. The kingdom of Koryo actually did this. But option 2, resist and face total, mathematically calculated annihilation. There was absolutely zero middle ground here. And to make doubly sure cities went with option 1, the Mongols essentially weaponized fear itself.
They were just absolute masters of psychological warfare. Seriously, before attacking a major city, they'd go around and capture the smaller surrounding settlements first. Why would they do that? Well, they wanted to flood the main city's walls with terrified refugees. They deliberately let survivors escape just so they could spread these horrific tales of destruction. So by the time the actual Mongol army showed up, the defenders were usually completely paralyzed. Take the siege of Bukhara, for example. 30,000 defenders were so broken by this engineered fear that they gave up almost immediately.
Now, it's really important to understand that this wasn't just chaotic savagery. Surviving historical texts, like The Secret History of the Mongols, prove they used a highly organized decimal system. Their army was divided into groups of 10, then 100, 1,000, and finally 10,000, which they called a tumen. This strict hierarchy meant that complex commands could be executed with total clockwork precision out in the battlefield. We're talking about a disciplined, highly tuned machine of war. And the actual arrival of this doom, it followed a terrifyingly predictable timeline. Days before, like we mentioned, the refugees fled in. Then, hours before, you look out from your city walls and you see advanced Mongol riders actually painting their horses' bridles red with blood. It's this incredibly ominous symbol meaning no quarter will be given. Moments before the assault begins, they plant exactly 3 arrows into the ground. And then the sky just fills with the shrieks of what they called ghost-crying arrows. These were hollow bone chambers specifically designed to scream as they flew through the air, basically driving the defenders to absolute madness before a single sword was even swung.
Now, let's say a defending army was actually brave enough to ride out and meet them in the open field. Well, then they'd face the Mongols' absolute deadliest tactical deception, the feigned retreat. Brilliant generals like Subutai would pretend to flee in a total panic, purposely drawing overconfident enemies right out of their formations. At the Battle of the Kulka River, they managed to lure the Russian forces into chasing them for 9 exhausting days. 9 days! And then, bam, the trap snapped shut and the completely disorganized pursuers were just annihilated. It's exactly like one medieval chronicler wrote, "They flee in order to conquer."
But if you stayed behind your walls, the sheer technological nightmare of a Mongol siege was just unparalleled. See, they absorbed the brightest engineers from the places they conquered, like China and Persia. They were using massive counterweight trebuchets to hurl 90-kilogram burning projectiles. They unleashed these things called heaven-shaking thunder bombs that were packed with gunpowder and shrapnel. But perhaps the most horrifying part? They deployed fire dragons. These were mobile units launching incendiary mixtures of saltpeter and, incredibly, rendered human fat. Defenders were literally watching the night turn into day as their own walls melted around them. You'll also have to realize the staggering scale of Mongol logistics, which historical chronicles completely back up. They didn't just show up with weapons and warriors. They brought tens of thousands of laborers with them.
When King Bela IV of Hungary tried to block the Carpathian passes by building these massive oak and fir barriers, the Mongols just rolled up with 40,000 axemen. They chopped down entire forests and completely cleared the roads in only 3 days. It didn't matter what you put in front of them. No wall, no forest, literally no natural barrier was going to stop their momentum. They actually even waged war against the environment itself. If a city's walls somehow proved too strong to breach, the Mongols would just go ahead and change the local geography. Over at the city of Urgench, they diverted the massive Amu Darya River, completely flooding the city and drowning thousands of people. They routinely poisoned wells with corpses and rotting animal blood. In some regions, they destroyed ancient irrigation systems so thoroughly that it permanently altered the climate, turning once fertile lands into dust. Environmental historians actually call this the Mongol Desert Effect today.
Now, if a city stubbornly refused to surrender and had to be taken by force, the aftermath wasn't just chaotic looting, it was chillingly bureaucratic. They called it the Protocol of Systematic Elimination. This wasn't some kind of blind, bloodthirsty rage. It was basically a calculated spreadsheet of death. First, they divide the surrendered population. They've carefully extract 50,000 or so vital artisans and craftsmen to deport back then serve the empire. Then, they divided everyone else by profession, age, and gender and handed out daily execution quotas to their soldiers. We're talking quotas of sometimes up to 100,000 people a day. And finally, in a move of pure psychological genius, they would purposefully spare exactly 400 people just to send them away as witnesses to spread the terror to the next town. I want you to just think about a number for a second. Let it truly sink in. 1,300,000. It's a massive, almost incomprehensible number. That 1.3 million, that is the number of human ears collected at the fall of the city of Merv. See, to make sure they had accurate body counts and to stop soldiers from exaggerating their kills, Mongol officers actually ordered their troops to cut one ear off every single corpse. They systematically sorted those 1.3 million ears using colored threads, specifically to distinguish between military and civilian casualties. This insanely macabre counting was then bagged up and sent to other cities as physical, undeniable proof of what happens when you defy the Khan.
Because of all this, Genghis Khan was actually known by Arab historians as the surgeon of sovereigns. He would surgically dismantle an entire ruling class. The elites in a conquered city basically faced one of 3 very precise fates. Exactly a third were humiliated and executed. Often they were rolled up and suffocated under heavy carpets so their royal blood wouldn't technically touch the earth, which was a Mongol taboo. Another third, usually the royal children, were taken all the way to Mongolia as hostages to be raised and brainwashed. And the final third, they were left behind as completely terrified puppet administrators. He made absolutely sure the existing social hierarchy was broken beyond repair.
All of this brutal efficiency was governed by a concept we can call the arithmetic of terror. And maybe the most terrifying policy under this umbrella was the 9 exterminations. Basically, if a single household rebelled against Mongol rule, they wouldn't just execute the rebels. They would execute 9 entire generations of that family. It was collective punishment on an unimaginable scale. In the Bamiyan Valley, right after a localized rebellion, the Mongols buried an entire village of 12,000 people alive. They even poured water on the earth to make the dirt settle faster over the struggling bodies, creating a place that literally became known as the Valley of Screams.
There was a Chinese official named Wei Shu who honestly described this mindset perfectly. He wrote, "They split families like a butcher splits meat, ensuring each piece served its purpose." And that hits the nail on the head. The Mongols simply didn't view their conquered subjects as human beings. They viewed them as raw resources. That was it. You were either a craftsman they could utilize, a hostage to ensure your family's loyalty, a human shield they could march in front of them for the next siege, or just a corpse to send a message to the next town.
But guys, here is the really profound historical paradox that we have to grapple with in this explainer. On one hand, you have these incredibly vibrant Silk Road hubs of culture, art, and science completely reduced to ash and poisoned wells. But on the exact same hand, out of this unimaginable, continent-spanning trauma, emerged what we call the Pax Mongolica, or the Mongol Peace. By violently uniting the steppe and brutally crushing all resistance, the Mongols accidentally created an era of totally unprecedented global connection, safe free trade, and multicultural exchange all the way across the Silk Road.
That same historian we mentioned earlier, Juvayni, actually wrote that under Mongol rule, a woman with a golden vessel on her head might walk alone without fear or dread. Everyday crime practically vanished overnight. And why is that? It's because the psychological dominance of the Mongols was so heavy and absolute. Think about it. The mere rumor that the Mongols were approaching caused entire cities in parts of Europe to voluntarily burn themselves to the ground. This peace was maintained solely because everyone knew the consequence of breaking it was total, literal erasure. Which brings us to the ultimate question of this whole explainer. Yes, the Mongol whip connected East and West like never before in human history. It laid the very groundwork for our modern, connected world. But we have to ask ourselves, is a peace bought entirely with the arithmetic of terror? A peace built quite literally on the ashes of millions and the deep trauma of entire generations? Truly peace at all? It's a really chilling thought to leave you with today, as we weigh the true, devastating human cost of history's largest contiguous land empire.